Good evening. I'd like to call the September meeting of the West Bend Planning Commission order and acknowledge we do have a quorum with Commissioners Caston and Dolnick excused. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on, the next items to be consider approval of the minutes. The first one will be the Planning Commission regular meeting of August 6, 2019. Entertain a motion to that effect.
Second.
Questions or comments? If not, all in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Thank you. The next item is approval of the Planning Commission minutes of the special meeting August 13th, 2019. Entertain a motion to that effect.
Move to approve. Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Motion's carried. Moving on to development proposals. Under that is item A, conditional use permit, a public hearing at 6 p.m. For CU-19-005. Public hearing for a request for a conditional use permit to allow a minor collision and dent repair service at 912 Schoenhauer Drive within the M2 Heavy Industrial District by Dean Christensen Dent Wizard. The applicant is Scott Bicknell. The agent is Dean Christensen Dent Wizard. And Jim, please enlighten us.
Good evening. Dent Wizards has submitted a conditional use permit for a minor collision and dent repair service at 912 Schoenhauer Drive. The parcel is zoned M2 Heavy Industrial. Under Section 1733 of the zoning code, truck repairs are a conditional use is a conditional use for auto repair, truck repair, and service establishments. And staff has made a determination that auto collision repair for minor and dent service repairs would be comparable to the truck repair. So staff required that a conditional use permit would be need to be obtained in order to run the operations out of this this property. An operations letter has been submitted for the operations, and the business plans to employ 5 employees. The location is suitable for on-site installation and has space available to accommodate the necessary the vehicles for repairs. The hours of operations would be Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., with Saturdays by appointment only. Parking is available on-site for the employees and for vehicles. The vehicles would typically be worked on and then returned daily, or if they would need to be parked overnight, they would be parked inside the building. All property owners within 200 feet were notified of the public notice, and staff received no inquiries. Staff would recommend approval of the conditional use permit with the listed conditions.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address this? If so, please go to the podium. Give us your name and address and enlighten us.
I'll move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you. What is the commission's pleasure on this item?
Make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Any further discussion on the part of the commission? If not, all in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you. And thank you to Dent Wizard for meeting to join us here in West Bend. Move on to the next public hearing, which is a zoning amendment, and it's ZA-19-006. A public hearing for proposed zoning code text amendment to amend Chapter 17 of the zoning code, City of West Bend, Wisconsin, to establish requirements for accessory structures in the side yards of single-family and two-family residential properties by the City of West Bend Department of Development. The applicant is the City of West Bend. Jim again.
Thank you. Back in July and August of this year, the Plan Commission held discussions on a request regarding an amendment to the code for the restrictions of accessory structures within residential districts. Staff has drafted up a proposal for the code change, which changes the modification section of the zoning code. This change allows by right accessory structures in the rear yard. And the change itself also amends the code to allow structures in the side yards after site plan approval has been granted. Public notice has been sent to the paper and published. Staff has not received any comments or concerns regarding the change in the code. So should the commission find the draft to be acceptable, we'd ask that the commission endorse this and forward it over to the Common Council for final approval.
Thank you. As this is an open meeting, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address this item?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion's carried. What is the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this and forward it to the Common Council. All in favor of said motion?
Hold on. I just had a question.
I'm sorry.
My recollection was that most of these will be handled internally, and they only come to Plan Commission if there's a dispute or something unusual.
Yeah, that's correct. The last line in the section cites 1739, which is the authority that the Plan Commission grants the zoning administrator to review these plans. If the commissioner would be uncomfortable with it, then he could refer them to Plan Commission. He doesn't have to approve them administratively, but he, if they're contentious or if there is some question, he can bring it before the commission. Or if the applicant would be insistent that it would come before the commission instead, we certainly would bring it to the commission for discussion.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jed. Anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, all in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to extraterritorial final plat. And that'll be XFP-19-001, extraterritorial final plat for Paradise Hills, a 26-lot single-family residential subdivision located at the northeast corner of Paradise Drive and Maple Drive in the town of Trenton by Gerald Thull, BE Development, LLC. The applicant is Gerald Thull, and the agent is Pete Hirth. Jim, enlighten us again.
Thank you. This extraterritorial final plat is located approximately 3/4 of a mile east of the city. This plat is within the city's comprehensive plan as it identified as open space and single-family residential. The plat is consistent with the preliminary plat that was approved back in December of 2016. The plat provides adequate right-of-way for Thull Court and for Paradise Hills Court. The plat identifies two outlots that were setting aside the right-of-way reservation for both Maple Road and for Paradise Drive. Since these are outlots and not dedicated to the town, the right-of-way itself is not valid until it's actually dedicated. So we're asking that the plat be revised to either just show the road reservation and eliminate the outlots, or dedicate the outlots for road purposes to the town. The CSM, or I should say the plat also identifies the primary environmental corridor at the north and east ends of the development, and staff is requesting a revision to the plat also to add the standard wording for plat restrictions for preserving these corridor areas. Staff would recommend approval of the site plan, or of the plat, with the two listed conditions.
Okay. Any comments or questions on the part of the commission? I entertain a motion to accept as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve with the two conditionals.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and second to approve the final plat with the following conditions of approval of the final plat by the West Bend Common Council and revision of the final plat, adding the plat restriction of the primary environmental corridor and to address the required technical corrections. All in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, D. Number 1 under D is CSM-19-011, redividing existing lots to create 3 lots located at 411 East Kilburn Avenue, west of Riverview Drive by Habitat for Humanity. The applicant is Tim Opes of Habitat for Humanity. The agent is Donald Thoma. Jim?
Thank you. This certified survey map is located at 411 East Kilbourne. It's just west of the Riverview Drive on the south side of Kilbourne Avenue. The purpose of the CSM is to redivide 4 existing parcels into 3. Parcel 1 or lot 1 contains a house with the existing garage, and lots 2 and 3 are vacant and would be used for future construction of the houses. The CSM will need to be revised to adjust the front property line to get the sidewalks out of the private property and into public right-of-way, and the dedication would be provided with that. Given the official map originally has Kilbourne Avenue as a 80-foot wide right-of-way, but given the development pattern that we have out there and the lot configurations, minimum right-of-way is going to be dedicated for this, just to get the improvements out of the private lots and into public right-of-way. Upon review of the CSM, this area does have some code prohibitive soils, which includes high groundwater and soil bearing capacity issues. So prior to recording the CSM, we'll need to have a soil mitigation plan to mitigate these conditions for the lot. And then as a part of the approval, we would do a developer's agreement addressing these issues for the lots, for the adverse soil conditions, along with a grading plan requirement. So staff would recommend approval of the CSM with the 2 listed staff conditions.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any questions on the part of the commission? Entertain a motion to approve it.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve this CSM with the 2 conditions: a revision of the CSM to address technical corrections and adjust the front property lines prior to recording the CSM, and 2, to approve of the developer's agreement to address the adverse soil conditions and site grading. All in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion's carried. Moving on to site plans. Site plan number 1 is SP-19-026, a site plan for the redevelopment of 1610 West Washington Street for a restaurant development by Dairyland Operation, LLC, Duncan and Baskin Robbins. The applicant is Dairyland Operations, and the agent is Mario Valentini. Again, Jim.
Thank you. This site plan is for a 2,160 square foot restaurant located at 1016 West Washington. The property is zoned B1 community business with floodplain and floodway storage, or floodway and floodplain storage on the northern edge of the development. The site plan identifies a screened refuse area, and as a part of the development plans, they provided 2 options, or three proposals with 2 options or 2 alternates. And the planning staff is asking the commission to approve one of the alternates which comply to our urban design standards for the screen refuse area, whether it be a block enclosure or an enclosure that is made with wood or compatible materials. Parking and access to this site, the site will be using the existing driveway onto West Washington Street, and the site provides 21 standard parking stalls with 2 barrier-free stalls. A stormwater management plan is required for the development and has not been submitted to the engineering department yet for review. So prior to the issuance of any permits, the stormwater management plan must be approved by the engineering department. The grades themselves have been designed to drain the site internally to various catch basins. Those catch basins would then tie into the city storm sewer in West Washington Street. The site lighting provided is LED fixtures. They're proposing 20-foot tall poles, overall height. Under urban design, those poles would need to be reduced down to 20-foot tall to comply with the code. Adequate landscaping is being provided throughout the site in accordance with the urban design standards. The site plan also identifies the sign location, a ground sign location on the southwest side of the site. The sign itself for the size conforms, but the location will need to be modified since it's too close to the existing driveway on the west side of the site, in conjunction with the neighboring driveway. The architectural building elevations also identify wall signage on the building, and they are requesting additional signage allowed by the code under urban design, which allows one wall sign per side with a maximum of 2 wall signs per building. Their proposal is having additional signage on the west side of the building and then an additional sign in conjunction with their Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins on the east side. So their Plan Commission would need to review this for an exception. If they find it to be acceptable, we'd ask that the Plan Commission grant the exception as part of the conditions of the approval. The majority of the building materials will be a mountain red brick. They also have a rustic wood tone fiber cement siding accenting the walls on the east, west, and south sides. And they're also proposing a cool gray ephes accent tower on the front of the building. They are also proposing the Dunkin' Donut orange colored awnings over the entrances and the windows. Staff finds the architectural materials to be acceptable along with the colors. As part of the site plan, they were proposing to remove some asphalt on the east side of the lot. In conjunction with that, the development to the east also has that pavement overlaps the property line. So prior to removing that pavement on that east end next to the Kentucky Fried Chicken, it needs to be verified that there is no easement for that pavement to exist there. If it does exist there, then we will need some additional modifications to the site plan for that pavement. Staff would recommend approval of the site plan with the listed conditions.
Thank you. Questions or concerns on the part of the commission? Judd?
Bear with me, I gotta find my place here. And the image on the tablet is not as clear as at home, but I had some questions about there has not been a traffic impact analysis as part of this, and that ties into a concern I have about the traffic flow in and out of this. There's only one driveway, that would be the existing driveway. It's not wide enough to permit anything more than one way in, one way out. So if there is somebody trying to get out and wants to make a left turn onto Washington Street, everything gets backed up behind them. So I guess the question is the type of traffic counts that we have for Washington Street that might create that problem. I don't have a solution for this. You're certainly not going to signalize mid-block. It may be answered by how the lights are, that existing lights are synchronized, but this could be a concern because nobody can get out in that scenario. I'm wondering why, unless there isn't room for it, the drive-up traffic doesn't get routed straight south to its own exit onto Washington, and why it's being wrapped around the building unless they need that stacking room Perhaps the representative from Duncan could explain that. By wrapping it around, it conflicts with vehicles that are trying to exit the parking lot, and that in combination with that left turn thing could be more of a problem. So those would be two questions I have. Is that, for Jim, is there a monument sign proposed for this? Or is all the signage just on the building?
No, there's a monument sign on the southwest corner, and it's in real close proximity to that driveway that overlaps
Okay.
over the property line. That's why there was a concern with the setback for
Okay,
that.
I couldn't tell what that was. So, all right, well, that answers, that explains why it doesn't go straight south and makes an exit probably not possible over there. But I'll defer to, if it's all right with you, Jim, maybe Max has answers.
I don't have the answers, but I have the same questions. We usually ask for at least trip generation calculations to see if a TIA is warranted. I think that's what we need to do there in the first place. And then if a traffic impact analysis is warranted, then it will tell us if we need any improvement. Like you mentioned, it could be a simple retiming of the signals. And as we've seen in other cases, it can go beyond with improvement in the road. But in this case, I don't anticipate going that far. I would think that probably retiming of the signal, if anything, when I believe Quick Trip came to the corner of Main and Decorah, that was the extent of what the TIA had given us, was a retiming of those signals. The signals are fairly apart from the project. Like you mentioned, it's mid-block, so we might see some kind of reduced effect because of that. I don't know, but the first step would be to have that trip generation done, study done, and then we'll go from there. We follow the DOT procedure on that to determine whether a TIA is required based on that. Yes, you mentioned the sign at the corner there, that there's one of the reasons why probably, I'm not the designer there, but I'm looking at it, and why the driveway exit would not work going straight. In addition, there is the property to the west had its driveway right there, slightly encroaching on this property itself. So that would be a conflict to have two driveways back to back on Washington Street. So I think that was part of what drove the design as it is. Again, that's just, I didn't talk to the designer, so that's just a guess, but that's what makes sense.
Is a Duncan representative here? Maybe one or both of you could enlighten us, please. Please identify yourself and see if you can address this situation.
Evening. I'm Mario Valentini. I'm with MRV Architects. Generated the site plan for this location. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to bring this to you. Basically, in short, your analysis is pretty well spot on. We, when looking at this, when you have the opportunity to have a direct exit onto the roadway from the drive-through lane, it's ideal. But in certain cases, it doesn't. We've got multiple reasons why we didn't want to do it. Yes, the property to the west has an immediate apron right there. Also, it benefits us to have a little bit longer of a stack exiting after the drive-through. Not only that, but in the event that we have situations where, although it's not ideal, a little longer order, you can direct somebody to come back around the front of the building, maybe hit a parking stall, and their order can be brought out to them. Sometimes the Baskin-Robbins orders maybe take a little longer, and then you can keep the traffic flow going by doing that. So that's, the site itself is not too narrow, but it's narrow enough to just kind of prevent the ability to have that. We would actually want the immediate exit plus the the opportunity to go in front of the building for that reason, for service speeds and whatnot. So I also think that if an immediate exit were to be coming off the drive-through lane, you might have a situation where somebody wants to make a right turn heading west, while somebody wants to make a left turn heading east at the same time, coming off of our property, and it's probably not what we're wanting to have happen at the same time. So a little bit of concern on both ends from exiting, but I think mid-block, we don't necessarily have a concern about a little bit extra time if needed, to just kind of stack the cars on the property while they can exit properly is fine with us.
Are you able to widen that entrance apron to permit a left turn?
I think we can definitely look at that. I think what happens is when widening that apron, you're going to have the people that are making a right turn. They're going to have to shift over to an immediate lane that is, has people coming from the drive-through coming around. Mm-hmm. So there's just a little bit of a concern from that perspective that widening that doesn't, you may just have somebody stuck right there already anyway, and it may not, benefit the situation, because you almost want to get to a point where you've got, people are going to do the right thing, right? They're going to say, hey, I was already here, or I'm pulling up, that guy was already there, he's first, I'm next. You hope, right?
You hope, yeah.
So I think in that case, we were trying to keep the existing apron, even from the standpoint of, just utilizing what's there. And I think widening it will just not necessarily have a huge benefit to creating that secondary lane.
Anybody else have any other questions or concerns they want to address?
I have a question.
Mhm.
You're looking for a third sign on the building, but there's no exact size on it.
Right.
Any estimate?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that, but I think for the most part, the Baskin-Robbins signs are relatively small. They're probably in the neighborhood of 20 to 22 square feet. It's just, the issue with this location is that we got two brands in the one building, right? And it's just, there's no way to put those two signs together in one kind of box sign. It's just, it's a tacky look for both brands. So, we'd be open to, obviously some kind of restriction if there's an allowable size, but for the most part, that's what we run into with the co-branded building, is the ability to have the identification for both brands in the building. So,
Yeah, Sarah?
I was looking at the slogan signs on both the east and west side of the building. This is not something that we have seen before or approved before.
correct.
Given that you are already in excess with the signage that you're asking for, I'm struggling with a little bit with those slogan signs.
If I could, so I didn't want to get into I don't want to have a long kind of spiel or presentation about this, but I'll keep it very brief. What you're seeing here for this building is new. It's new for Dunkin' Donuts. Well, it's actually Dunkin'. It's new for Dunkin'. It's new for Baskin. This is a new prototypical building that they're rolling out nationally. And what they like to do in this case is you have this national brand who wants to make some identification with the municipalities that they're in, right? So you've got the big slogan that you probably see on television, America runs on Dunkin'. Well, in this case, you're giving the opportunity to localize that a little bit and it would be West Bend runs on Duncan. The other slogan is just just kind of a little newer kind of slogan that they'd like to use as a catchy phrase. Having said that, what we've run in the past in doing these buildings for 20 some odd years now is that we've had situations where the facades of the buildings have become just kind of open, blank facades. And the criticism is, well, can you do something to the facade to just kind of break it up a little bit? And we don't have the ability to just punch windows in those areas because it's either the bathroom area or it's back of house area where you really don't want, windows for people to see in. So we break up the building with the materials that you're seeing, and then, with the purpose of having that material is to just kind of identify these slogans. So we're open to, if it's concerning that there's you're trying to keep it without having too much going on, but you're also trying to have that kind of localized representation. So that's what those are for.
I do agree that the sides of the buildings could use a little bit more interest in those areas. However, I will not be on board if it is a slogan that's put on the side. I feel like that's just setting us up, breaking our codes, and setting us up for precedents that we don't want to start. So,
if the slogans don't stay, the materials still do. It's just a matter of, you've got the wooded, the wood look area with the goosenecks, and it's not really shining on anything.
So I do appreciate what you're saying, but I won't be able to give you my vote if that slogan is going to stay, if the slogans are going to stay on the side. So, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
We're open to, it's more important to have it, the whole building there, so.
Any other questions or concerns on the part of the commission?
No, I will just clarify what I was saying before. I would like to add a condition for whoever's going to make the motion to work with us on giving us the trip generation numbers so we can look at them. I think to add that as a condition.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we'll determine whether we need to go further with the traffic impact analysis or not.
Okay. How do we want to address the sign issue?
I agree with Sarah. I also would prefer to not see slogans on buildings, especially when they're asking for a sign variance the way it is. But I'm fine with everything else with Max's condition.
So do we make a condition where we won't see any slogan signs?
Before I make a motion, Max, are you feeling like this needs to be tabled until we have the traffic impact analysis? Or are you feeling like it can go forward with the condition that you'll look at it later?
I think we can move forward. I don't have a huge concern in the extent of the changes that we will see from a traffic impact analysis. We may see an analysis that says you don't need to make any changes, or we may see an analysis that says you need to make a small changes, like I mentioned with the quick trip on Main Street, where it was just a change on the timing for the signal. So, and I'm sure the applicant will be working with us and communicating with us in that aspect. So, I would not require the project be tabled at this time. I think if we move forward with adding a couple conditions like we discussed, I would be fine with that. I can definitely, as we move forward with the traffic let you know what the determination is, what the study says, unless you really want it to come back.
I don't feel like it needs to come back, so if I make a motion to approve the site plan with the 4 conditions that are listed and add a 5th where a traffic analysis is completed and okayed by the city, and then also that the slogan on both sides of the building are not allowed.
I'll second that.
Okay. You meant the trip generation number assessment as opposed to a TIA? Yeah, okay. And everybody's good with that? Okay. You understand?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the site plan with the following conditions: submission and approval of an erosion control plan prior to any land disturbing activities and prior to the issuance of a building permit. Provision of a landscape bid and adequate surety prior to the issuance of a building permit. Approval of a stormwater management plan prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number 4 is revision of the site plan set to incorporate technical corrections as identified during the city staff review prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number 5, to do a trip generation number study and forward it to the city engineer for his perusal and determination. And 6, that there will be no slogan signs on either wall of the building. All those in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion's carried. Thank you. And thank you for choosing to do business in West Bend. Go ahead.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. Very quick question, is there, is this board final? There's no, doesn't go to village board or anything like that for final approval?
The commission has the final word on the site plan approval. Once we meet all of the conditions, we can move forward with building permits and erosion control permits and all the rest of it.
That was my question. Thank you. We're in a very tight window for due diligence, and we were concerned that if it were to carry further.
We will forward the conditions of approval to you for your response, and we'll work with you to get that moving.
I appreciate that. The verbal is good enough for now. Thank you very much.
Okay,
We
thank
appreciate
you
it.
again. Okay, moving on to number 2 site plans, SP-18-016. Site plan for a wall sign exception request to allow an additional signage on the Fleet Farm convenience store and car wash located at 3725 West Washington Street by Tom Carioco, Fleet Farm. And agent is J. Brian Haynes of Crabtree and Rorick and Associates. Jim, again, yours.
Thank you. Back in September of last year, the Plan Commission conditionally approved the site plan for the Fleet Farm Development Project. As a part of the approval, the Plan Commission reviewed the signage package that was presented to the commission. And as a part of that, the convenience store had signs identified on the west and north sides of the building. And also, as a part of that, there was a third ground sign that was located on site within the site for the gas station pumps or the fuel prices. Fleet Farm has submitted a request for a sign exception from the Plan Commission to allow some additional signage on the west and north sides of the building. Further being explained as that on the west side of the building, they are asking for 4 additional smaller non-illuminated signs that are on either side of the Fleet Farm fuel sign building, or fuel signage on that side of the building. And those signs range from 4.25 to 8.25 square feet. That is in conjunction with the 54 square foot fuel sign. The overall signage for that wall is still under the 10% allowable under the sign code. They are also requesting a fuel sign or a price sign on the north side of the building. This would replace the ground sign that was originally proposed in front of the convenience store gas station area. And that sign would be approximately just under 28 square feet, and that would be in conjunction with the car wash sign, which was 96 square feet. And again, that sign both of those signs in conjunction are less than the 10% allowable signage on the building. Under urban design, the code allows one wall sign per building with a maximum of one wall sign per side with a maximum of 2 wall signs per building. So in order for us to grant the approval for a sign permit for these 2 additional signs, the commission needs to review the proposal and make a recommendation and grant an exception for this. So tonight, the Fleet Farm Group is asking that the commission consider a change to the additional signage prior to issuing the sign permits.
Okay, thank you. It's the pleasure of the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Any further discussion? It's been, Chad, please.
I understand why they want to put candy snacks, beer cave, and soda on the building, because otherwise people may very well look at it and not realize it's a convenience store. Whereas if you see a Quick Trip, for example, you know they have all that stuff. My question is, if we allow this, and this basically, the height and the position of the convenience store, from what I'm understanding, probably, I mean, you won't be able to see that unless you're right there.
Correct.
So-
Correct. It wouldn't be seen from the road. It's only in the site.
And so that all speaks fine for this. If Quick Trip or any other convenience store or retailer wanted to do this and it was visible from the street and it would look kind of garish, are we setting the precedent, or is it okay to approve this because of this unique situation of its position? Are we locking ourselves into something in the future?
I think it was more of a case by case. You're right. It's only on site. You only see it on site. Where in other circumstances where we've limited to them or haven't done additional signage like this, it's always been because it's been visible from the street.
Right.
So it's a unique situation, and that's what the urban design has been set up that way for the commission to look at these on an individual basis.
Okay, that's great.
Any other questions or comments on this? All in favor of said motion to allow Fleet Farm to make the additional signs if their staff has approved them, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Motion is carried. Good, thank you. With no further business to come before the commission, I hereby adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much.